everyone who's here watching everything with us live, and for all the folks that are going to be viewing this as a recording, episode 85. It feels like we got the band back together, so that's really awesome. Amy, can't thank you enough for being here. Amy Meyers, National Senior Director of Fundraising and Community Engagement with MDA. Jason Ledlow, Trevor Nelson, HGA Fundraising, HGA Bid. Can't thank you all enough for being here. This is going to be a cool topic. Jason has a lot of experience with this. Amy's got a ton of experience with this topic. And please, everyone, keep the Q&A and chat. I'm going to monitor that, and we'll get, have plenty of engagement and any questions. But episode 85 is going to be a how-to episode, and it's going to be focused around auctioneers, benefit auctioneers, and how to find, interview, negotiate, and eventually hire the best auctioneer for your events to enable you to raise more money, right? So it's an important topic. It's an important conversation for us all to have. And like I said, Amy's got a ton of experience with this. We've got some cool feedback, and we want to hear from you all. So thanks so much, everyone, for coming, and appreciate you so much for being here, Amy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
I love whenever we have these and auctioneers show up for them. That's awesome. So,
oh, wait, any that I know, because I have some events coming up. I don't want to say anything bad about any of them.
No, I'm going to say, I'll say something bad about everybody. So including myself. So I'll do that for everybody. So this is the reason this was such a big deal for us to bring up, because we've talked about the importance of auctioneers, what that means, but we never really talk about how to hire an auctioneer. And I think this is one of the things, it winds up being the same thing. And I've experienced this, and I know Amy probably has seen this, and everybody here, because it's kind of funny how it's always happened. And I'll just tell everybody, so this is kind of an announcement for me, and it's not a big deal, but it is kind of to me, but I've officially retired from doing charity auctions. And so after doing them for 30 years, I'm done. I did my last one about 2 weeks ago, and I'm dropping the mic and putting it down. And there's a couple of reasons for me personally. One is because I just don't have the time that it takes to be an auctioneer at that level anymore to maintain it. I just don't. And I don't want, and I want to be, I wanted to, when I did it, to do it at that level. But that kind of goes into this point of, when we start looking at auctioneers. And the reason I said this is because I've had a couple of calls and people are asking me, and the questions that they asked were, are you available and what do you charge?
Yeah.
And that's frightening to me, because I think about all the work, all the dedication, all the time, all the money that's spent in this entire process. And then we just basically take the first person that says, I can do it. So I've got some things I'm going to go through. I want to get Amy's feedback on all this, because Amy hires a lot of auctioneers. Her team hires a lot of auctioneers and work with a lot of auctioneers all across the country. And we work with a lot of auctioneers as well across the country. And these are some things, and it's kind of funny to me sometimes about what happens and how that goes. And I have been a professional auctioneer in multiple facets. And so I do bring some experience to this, because that's one of the things. What is that? And so I've got some cool slides. So I'm going to pop my slides up here real quick and just kind of do it. Avoiding the auctioneer nightmare: how to find, interview, negotiate, and hire an auctioneer that will help you raise more money. What is an auctioneer? Well, simply put, an auctioneer is an agent who conducts a public sale of goods or property that is sold to the highest bidder. Notice I said, what is an auctioneer? Now we're going to talk about some specialists. Okay. So I think this is kind of a cool thing. Let me ask you this though, bonus question. Who knows, auctioneers may not answer, and I've got it where it just goes to the panelists, so that way we'll see your answers. Who knows, why are auctioneers called colonel?
I've seen this before, but I don't know why.
Why are auctioneers called colonel? Anybody know? Anybody? Amy, do you know?
I do not.
Yeah, neither do I. That's awesome.
So post-Civil War, so back in those times, whenever after the war, they were going on and disposing of the spoils. They were selling off the estates and property and things like that. And a lot of these officers, the ranking officer of the deal, who's typically a colonel, would do that. Well, after the war was over, a lot of their farms had been destroyed, their jobs, whatever. They didn't have anything to go back to, so they became professional auctioneers, and that's where it comes. And that's why still today, a lot of times people go by colonel. So Just a little fun factoid.
Cool.
But the thing about auctioneers, the professional auctioneer, what does that mean? And I really wanted to talk about that for a second. So the professional auctioneer is used to describe auctioneers who are paid for their service they perform. Think of auctioneers the same way you think about doctors. They specialize. Doctors do things like orthopedics, diabetes, dermatology, rheumatology, all these different, there's some general practitioners, but all these different things. Auctioneers are the same way. And even the specialty has more specializations, like automobile auctioneers. Well, that's general, classic, salvage, real estate. Do they sell farm and ranch, commercial, real estate, your residential, mineral rights, antiques, equipment, cattle, horses, estates? And literally, these are specialties. And yes, charity fundraising auctions. And so you can see here, there's different things. You know, the car, this is a wholesale car auction where they only sell to dealers. There's a cattle auctioneer, you know, millions of pounds of beef are moved by this method every day. And then, of course, we see the charity auctioneer up there conducting at a gala. So those are really important things, get the right screen up, that we think about this, because I want to just give you some feedback general, and I want to get Amy's thoughts on this as well. You can have a professional car auctioneer, an auto auctioneer, who is a fantastic at doing charity auctions. You can have a fantastic cattle auctioneer who's fantastic at doing charity auctions, because this is their profession. They really work at it, whether it's horses, real estate, things like that. You can have great charity auctioneers who can do all those things as well. I mean, I know a world champion auto auctioneer who is completely out of the auto business, and all he does is dedicated to the charity and fundraising. But that's not always the case. There are some fantastic auctioneers that it's just not the same when it comes to doing your gala and charity. So I really want you to think about that and to keep those things in mind. Doesn't mean that they can't do both. It doesn't mean that they don't do both. And I wanted to just get Amy's take on that from what you've seen.
So I think I agree 100%, because I do have cattle auctioneers that do very well at a charity event and automobile. But I think where you have to kind of delve in is, are they an automobile auctioneer that is just going to help you out and do your event, versus are they a cattle auctioneer that on a regular basis does charity events? You know, yes. Do they do several a year, or do they do one a year because they're just helping your organization save money? So I think that at what level they do the charity piece of it makes a big difference. And having that conversation to find out, you know, how often are they doing it? Because it's like anything. If you do something once a year, you probably get a little rusty in between.
Yeah, that's right.
So I agree. I've seen it both ways, but I think that's where you need to dig and ask more questions.
Well, and I think that too, you can have somebody who is, let's just say that your community is a smaller community, and you have somebody that's the local auctioneer, and they're doing your charity auctioneer. They know everyone. They know what's going on. They know everybody there. They're part of that community. And this is a way, and they do come and do it for you for free. And this is a way that they're able to contribute back to the community. And that is a very, it's noble. That's really a good thing, you know, most of the time, because typically they're very adaptable. They want to stay in the forefront of what's going on. They want to help you raise more money. And it's not that. Where things get a little bit dangerous with these professional auctioneers is when they're like, look, I just show up, hold the microphone, do my thing, it'll be all right. And it's not a little bit, it's a lot of arrogance. And auctioneers, we have tremendous egos, because it does take that to do what we do. There's ego, just like there is in every profession. There is some ego involved, but we want to make sure that it doesn't translate into arrogance. And I've got another slide up here because I wanted to talk about some nightmares that we've seen. And, you know, what kind of auctioneer do you need to hire? Well, let's talk about that a little bit more. But, you know, what is an auctioneer nightmare? So I've put some that I personally know have been not that has happened to that I've done necessarily myself, but that where I know that this has happened. And here's just a couple. Our auctioneer got a little bit tipsy at the event. I'm being kind when I say that, but it happened. We had somebody I know, they said, yeah, well, the person had a couple of glasses of wine and they got up there and it just seemed like they were a little tipsy and a little bit too loose. Now, I can tell you, most charity auctioneers, professional auctioneers, that's never going to happen. That is just something that's not going to happen. And that's why you have to be aware of the free auctioneer. But we'll come back to that here in just a second. The auctioneer went so fast that no one could understand him. When it came time to do the fund to need, the auctioneer sped through it and didn't seem to try. This happened last year to a client we know, and I said this was, and the person that did that was a professional free auctioneer. What I mean by that is, the client asked me to talk to him. I did, made sure that he understood some of the strategies that they were wanting to do. He told me that he does this all over the country, that he does dozens of these. He knows what's going on, and pretty much told me to mind my own business. But the guy did it for free and he bragged about it. He was terrible. Terrible. I'm saying terrible with a capital T. Follow up the following year, basically the same crowd, same setup, everything, and a professional auctioneer came and did it and their total went from about 70 to 100, and I think about $130,000, and most of it from the live ask. So it can make a tremendous amount of difference. We had a minimum price and the auctioneer sold below the minimum. And it doesn't have to just be consignment. You could literally have a donor who says, look, I'm going to put my place up, but I don't want it going for less than 5,000. It has to bring that. And you get somebody up there and they just get going fast and people don't understand and they just drop the hammer on it and sell it to somebody for 3,500. You've got, a crowd that you didn't make as much money on. You've got a donor that's not going to want to donate it again because you didn't respect them. And the auctioneer just took it upon themselves to make that decision. And I'm not saying you just want to, those are things where I call them nightmares because it's really not a good thing. The auctioneer didn't know how to sell multiples. And instead of 2 or more, he only sold 1. Amy, you're the one that told me about that, having that issue. The auctioneer was rude and arrogant. They can be. And the guy looked like he rolled out of bed and just showed up. I went to a benefit, and the guy who I knew, he bragged about all the free auctions that he did, looked like an unkept slob. And I was told this before, and when I saw it, I was appalled because I was like, if this is, you're showing up here doing this, what in the world are you thinking? So I think those are some things. Does anybody have any nightmares they want to share?
I mean, I'll share one.
Okay.
That goes back to the local auctioneer that knows everybody and does it for free. And it can be a good thing that they know your community and they're giving back to the community. But on the other side of it, I have seen where they know your room too well. Mm-hmm. And so they know who the people in the room are with the most money. And it became very uncomfortable because it was very obvious that they were pressuring those people with more money to the point of calling them out and saying, I know you can afford this.
Oh, wow.
You need to bid on this. And it was cringeworthy. So that was a very uncomfortable situation, and it went from bad to worse.
Yeah, that's not fun.
As they were chewing gum, there was 2 of them. It was a husband and wife as they were chewing gum.
So
this comes up a lot.
Tell that, and I'm just going to tell you, free auction, the word free is, you got to be really careful about that when they say they're free, because there's a difference between Dan Campbell, who says, I'm going to go, and because he's on here, he says, you know what, I'm going to make a donation today and I'm going to donate my service. This is what he does for a living. Does a lot of events all over. And there's a difference between the professional saying, I'm going to do that because this is the way I want to give back to this specific deal. And all auctioneers have their, what I call their pets, or most of them do. And they'll do it for certain organizations, but that's a different. And if banking on a free auctioneer that's going to make or break your event, you probably need to retool the whole thing and rethink it. And I really mean this. I can't say this enough. There are some fantastic auctioneers out there who get it on all levels, who are fantastic in the charity fundraising. And there's a guy, a friend of mine, I've known him for a long time. He's a car auctioneer. I would pick him every day and twice on Tuesday to come and do my charity auction if I were, because he is that good. But he's also very into what's going on. He is a pro car auctioneer. He is just one of the best. But that doesn't mean he's one of the exceptions. And even if they're a fantastic bid caller, that doesn't mean they're going to be great with your room. That doesn't mean they're going to be able to engage with your donors. I know a guy who's a world champion, but he won't walk 3 steps out of his way to talk to somebody. And it's not because he's ego, it's because he's tremendously shy. Getting behind the microphone, he's okay. But the rest of the time he's not there. So you're looking, in the benefit world, the charity world, we need the whole package. We need everything we can possibly get, every advantage that you can possibly have in the person, in that man or woman who are going to stand up there and hold the microphone. And so I really believe
personal
that.
attention and a personal investment, I think, is something that should definitely be a prerequisite when you're looking to find and interview the right fundraising auctioneer for your event. Jason, you said something about free, be wary of free, but you've got a really good saying about cheap as well.
Well, my deal is cheap auctioneers aren't good and good auctioneers aren't cheap. And that's just, typically if an auctioneer is going to donate it to you, they're going to say, my fee's $2,500, but for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a donation back to your organization for that, or whatever it is.
Yeah, it could be any number. Insert the number.
And auctioneers charge anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 or more, and so it could be more. And that's not what we're going to talk about that here in just a second. And so let's get to the hiring point. What I believe is the hiring process that everyone should go through. This is based on my opinion and experience, and I'll give you some whats and wows, and I definitely want to get Amy's feedback on it through what they do. So it's a really simple 4-step process: finding auctioneers, interviewing auctioneers, negotiating with auctioneers, and hiring your auctioneer. Notice I had plural and then I went to singular. I think it is a huge mistake when organizations find the first yes is the one that you take. I really believe there are some tremendous options out there for you, whatever your budget, whatever your setup is, for you to do that, because there's a lot of really great auctioneers around, and that's not the issue to find somebody. So the first person of finding auctioneers, the number one is referrals. One of the two things that I think that happen is, asking other nonprofits in your area who they used, and then ask the following questions. Did they work with you? In other words, did they work? Did they help you? Did they assist? How well did they interact with the crowd? How did they do selling your items? How did they do with the fund of need? You need to really be specific on those things, because it's something that matters. All pieces of that matter greatly. And one of the ways that I suggest that you ask your nonprofit is the following. If you're calling up to friends and I say, hey, Amy, I heard you guys had a really great event last month. Can I ask you who your auctioneer was? And just ask you a few questions about it. Typically what it is, and Amy and I are laughing about it, it's not who did your auction and what did they charge? Because I'm going to give you a reason why. I don't know this person. And Amy says it was John Smith and he charged $7,000. Well, if I hear $7,000 and I don't have my budget's $2,000, I'm going to go, oh, whoa, hold on. I can't do that. Don't even ask how much. Just ask about what it is. And then you can ask that and do that. But you want to find out, because if it's, if I've got the chance, and I'm going to use they're all retired now basically, but if I've got a chance to have Tiger Woods be my star golfer, that's who I want. Regardless what he charges, because I know with him, I'm going to win. And I'm obviously now he's practically retired, but you get what I'm saying. I want the Michael Jordan. Now, that comes with a cost, but we want to make sure, because the difference in the auctioneer, as we just mentioned, could mean I asked the gentleman I told you about who had the auctioneer, that the guy didn't know what he was doing really, and the one that they killed it. I said, what difference do you think the change in auctioneer made? He said, without a doubt, it made a minimum of $30,000 to $40,000 bottom line to our event. What's that worth? So the second thing is to interview the auctioneer. I really think I remember this has only happened a few times to me, but when somebody says, I'm looking for an auctioneer for this date and I have a budget, the person didn't say, and it did something for me. One, it said, I'm willing to pay. I'm not looking for the free guy. I'm willing to pay. And are you available? Okay. She saw me at an event. It was a little impromptu thing, and it's like one of the few times, but that told me a lot. One is that she values what I'm doing. She's willing to pay for it, and she wants to come up there. Because a lot of auctioneers, if you say, hey, I just want to see, hey, we've got an event coming up and it's going to be October 15th. Are you available? Well, it kind of depends. If we're going to pay, if I'm getting paid, yeah, then I'm available. But if it's a free deal, no, I'm going to go to the movie with my wife. And so those are things that I encourage you to think about when you do that, when you make that ask and you're first talking to the auctioneer. And then I like to do something where, and I've done this, hiring people for different things over the years, get them to ask them, say, is there anything that you'd like to know about our organization? I believe this to be one of the best ways to find out what kind of auctioneer you're going to hire. I'm somewhat embarrassed to say that 15, 20 years ago, if you'd asked me that question, I probably would have said, it really doesn't matter. Oh, yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. So tell me what you guys do. Okay, sure. Yeah. Okay. Because I thought, man, if I just get the microphone in my hand, it's magic time. Well, you can be pretty good. You can be a really good auctioneer, but that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for somebody that wants to know, tell me how much money you're wanting to raise. Tell me what your organization is. What is the mission that we're going to be doing? Have you, what's your sponsorships look like? What did you sell last year? How are you doing on auction items? How many people come to the event? How many items are in the auction? They need to start, if they're asking those kind of things, that means they're not there just to get a paycheck and leave. They truly are going to take some ownership in your success. And that is the number one thing, I believe, the number one thing that we should all be looking for first and foremost. If it's not, then they get a little minus sign. It's simple pluses and minuses. Amy, you got any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I was going to ask Amy as well. This kind of blends into a question I've been waiting to ask about just attention for the event, attention towards the organization. But how much weight, Amy, do you put in the interview process and the hiring process, the character and the personality and the fit, not just for the organization, but for those, the donors and constituents and supporters that are going to be in attendance? Is that an important facet of what you look at, or are you agnostic to it entirely? I kind of have an idea where the answer is going to go, but I wanted to hear it from you and what your thoughts are from all the experience that you have.
So I think it's really important.
Yeah.
The personality of the auctioneer, which is why we have several different auctioneers that we use at our events across the country, because every room is different.
Yep.
And so you need to find that personality that fits the room. And if you've had your event, more than once, you learn your donors and you know what type of donors they are, what they're going to respond to. Mm-hmm. So I have auctioneers that work fantastic at one event, but I have other events that I know that they just wouldn't even, it wouldn't go as well. So I think personality is huge. I think, and not that if it's a charity auctioneer, they all have personalities to work a room. but not necessarily the personality to work certain rooms. I mean, there are some that can really, really be flexible, but for the most part, they're pretty good at certain types of events.
Yeah, that's good. That's good feedback. I think
yeah,
it's
and
important.
it's kind of like the whole thing with we talked about specializing. I mean, it really does change from person to person. You know, if you've been selling it, whether it's just like talking about doctors, what's their personality, their bedside manner. You're looking for all those same things. It's not just the fact that they've got an MD and I'm going to take, and if you choose your doctors that way, then okay, maybe I'm talking, it's not going to work for you, but think about all those things. It does make a difference. Yeah. Do they listen to what's going on? Do you hear that they're being receptive? Are they asking you questions? Do they want to be a part of it? You know, those are things that I believe all go into it.
I think
Jason, back to, oh, sorry, Trevor.
No, you're good. You're good. Go ahead.
So Jason, back to, when you said one of the questions that you ask is, do you have any questions about our organization? I actually like to ask an auctioneer because when I'm hiring an auctioneer, I look at it as an investment and also as an interview. I'm hiring them for a job. So I am truly interviewing them. And one of the first questions I ask them is what they know about my organization. I want to know that I feel like they're trying to get a job with me and they should take a few minutes before our call to look up my organization and at least know a little bit about it. So then they can ask the appropriate questions. But I want to know right off the bat, have they taken any time to look at what my organization is and what my mission is? Yeah. I just think that's really important.
Is it going to be a toast to life gala? You know what I mean? That kind of thing, like the different nuance. I think it's important. Obviously, it's important. I think it's huge. And then the thing is, we talk about this all the time. Jason and I do, at least internally, and we share it with others, but people want to do business with people that they like. And I'm not trying to make all this seem transactional, but there's going to be a lot of transactions, quote unquote, taking place. And
if you're the auctioneer, you're going to have a lot of transactions.
That's what I'm saying. And I'm not trying to keep it all surface, because there has to be an emotional connection, because the emotion is attached to the giving. But the fit seems more important than ever, because of so many options, right? You have so many options, and people are coming at you with, I'm doing it locally. I'm the DJ from the radio station. I'm the TV personality. I'm the benefit auctioneer, and I have a price tag and things like that. You have a lot of options. But I think likability and connection is probably becoming more paramount than ever before. It's not a one size fits all scenario, and I want
to say something about what you just said. And this goes back to the professional auctioneer thing. There are a lot of professional auctioneers or charity auctioneers or benefit auctioneers who aren't auctioneers. And I'm not, this is not a
really
blanket statement, because there are exceptions to the rule, but you just said something, there's a radio personality out there, and they've decided to do a benefit auctioneer because somebody got them up to do a free thing. Hey, I'm pretty good at this. I did all right. Well, no, they're not. They're not that good. They were good enough. They got by. They did okay. But we're looking for the exceptional. That's what I'm talking about here. We're trying to find something that exceeds the expectation of just okay.
Can I ask you a question? Can I intervene? Can I interject? I want to ask you, and I want to ask Amy a question. That doesn't mean there's going to be a right or wrong answer. I'm just curious though, because you just said there's some really there are okay. Let me ask it this way. There's some great benefit auctioneers out there that specialize in one space. Maybe they're not champion auto auctioneers, or they have any experience with real estate or appraisals or livestock or anything. Now, maybe they're not the greatest quote unquote auctioneer or bid caller, right? And they don't, and they're not the fastest. Can those people, those men and women that aren't, can they be amazing benefit auctioneers? Can they be exceptional?
They can be. We've got, and I'm not going to drop names, but I know an auctioneer who is very successful. He gets paid a lot of money, to do benefits, and he is good. He is not a traditional bid caller. And what I mean by
That's what I
that
was
is
curious about.
the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 money. That not that he's not that kind of an auctioneer, but he knows how to count. I can tell you, there's people that get up there that don't have a clue how to count. And I'm getting on I'm going to get on my box for just a second, because there are men and women out there who purport themselves to be an auctioneer, but they haven't even taken the time to learn how to count. And this is what I mean, because I've literally witnessed somebody having a bid at 4,000, saw that this is all live money, 4,000, 4,500, 5,000, 5,500, 4,000, 4,500. Yes, I've got 4,000 over here. I'm looking for, people are yipping, and the spotter's going, hey, no, wait. I've got 5,500 right here, and they can't count. And it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 9, 7, 6, 2. So there's part of that. It's not just,
there has to be a level of competency, of course, right?
It's about competence about there, because after you do it 2 or 3 times, and this is so, and that's,
I guess I'm projecting, but my overarching point, I suppose, is I'm projecting they do need to have a certain skill set, obviously, and I want to hear from you too, Aim.
Christie's auction, Christie's in New York City sells things for millions. Okay.
Yeah.
They don't have a what would you consider a bid roll chant. It's I'm bid $1 million, 1,000,001, 1,000,002, $1.3 million. Yes, I'm bid 1.3, 1.4. I mean, it's just the same thing. You can get up there and do that all day. It's the delivery. So the bid roll part is secondary. You could be the greatest bid caller, have the prettiest, most wonderful, melodious bid chant there is, and be terrible. So that's why I say it's, there's more.
The connection probably has to be a little bit deeper as far as a level of importance, I'm assuming. Amy, what is your feedback? Because you've seen this before, and I'm thinking of different characters that, like, they're not going to be a world-class auto auctioneer, but they're amazing at connecting with the mission, at connecting with the crowd, amazing at raising money. They hit it out of the park with the fund to need, or whatever folks are using as a moniker to describe it, but you get the gist. And so I'm saying is, if you have a skill set, I'm projecting once again, I guess I know the answer, but it's not the most important thing,
It is. I mean, so this is not going to be a popular answer.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Some people, but I'm not a huge fan of the bid roll or the chant or whatever. I actually like what Jason just did with the counting. I don't want to say, people are coming to my events as a gala or a golf outing. They're not coming with the expectation like they're at an auto auction where you're going to have that bid roll and that fast moving. Now, it is huge that you can do, like Jason said, the bid count, because if you can't do that and you lose your work,
you can't drop the ball.
So, there definitely has to be that level of competency, and that, you definitely have to have that talent, but I don't necessarily, I have many auctioneers that don't do that bid roll. They can, but we actually choose to not have them do it that way.
I rarely
love that feedback.
I do mine. Mine is all in between. I may say, whenever I was doing it, but it's different. It is not the same thing. I've been a professional car auctioneer and I sold 300 cars in an hour. I'm selling to professional buyers who know what I'm saying. They can understand it. You kind of try to go that fast in a charity event, they're going to go back to drinking cocktails and talking to their friends because they don't know what the heck they got.
You will lose your room.
Yeah, I got a very silly question. I guess it's kind of a follow-up, but if you haven't witnessed this professional in a room, which a lot of folks actually do because they're networking and they're at other events that have nothing to do with their organization, obviously, because they're in a community that has 1,000 nonprofits, for instance. But let's just say you don't get the opportunity to see this individual that can hit it out of the park at a fundraising event. I mean, do you ask Amy ever to see video, or do you want? I always ask
for video. I always ask for references.
Cool.
You know how many people have ever asked me to auction though for them, Amy? In 30 years of doing this, you know how many people have asked me to auction? How many nonprofits? 0. I have never, not once, been asked to do it. If they've never asked, ever. And it's interesting to me because I'm like, why would you not want to know? Why would you not want to see that and see what you're getting? You interview, you taste the food before you hire the caterers. you get video, you see what kind of lights and video you're going to get. You kind of know everything, and then you do that. And I want to pop to just a couple of questions on this thing, because they kind of go on that. What is your auctioneering experience? How many events do you do per year? If you only do one or two for your part, Amy, you may not be up on everything.
Yeah, the reps aren't.
And there are exceptions to the rule, but this is generally pretty good. Do you consult as part of your package? Are you familiar with selling consignment? Are you familiar with fund to need, other games? And it goes back to whenever I keep getting the wrong one. When you get to when you're doing your interview, or you're asking for the reference, I'm going to ask Amy, hey, I heard that you had an auctioneer, Trevor, said y'all did pretty good. How did he really do? How did he do on selling the items? How did he do on the fund to need? Be real specific. Ask those questions to them. Ask specifically, because they may go, because they go, oh yeah, he was really good. He did great. Well, how did he do interact with people? Well, he really wasn't there. He just got there right before the auction and went up, got the microphone. How did he do selling the items? Well, he did really good. Did you have any consignment? Yeah. How'd you do on that? Well, you kind of, if you break it down, you start getting the real answers. But he was a really nice guy. Trevor's a really nice guy, and he's, he had a great personality. How did you do on fund to need? Knocked it out of the park. Okay. And you may say, that's good, because we're not having any live auction items. All we're doing is a fund to need.
It does happen. It does happen.
So then that starts making sense.
Jason, you elicited some questions. I'm interrupting everyone, but I want to call for questions if we have any questions. Shannon just came in with a question. Yeah. There's a Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen, because we want to hear from you all that are here in attendance. If you have any questions for us, Amy's obviously got a tremendous amount of experience. Jason's been on both sides as well, experience-wise. And so we've got a question from Shannon. Okay, Shannon, I've heard from a number of friends for feedback about recent galas, including one I could not attend. A number of attendees were disengaged during the paddle raise live auction. Suggestions for this, not having the bar open during the live event. This is a great question for Amy. I think, we always call it the golden hour of fundraising, and you're vying for people's attention. I keep saying this, for better, once again, monikers, but donors are consumers at the end of the day. Right? It's just that they're in a particular setting, and we're trying to evoke emotion and giving from donors, obviously, and that's the entire purpose. However, attention is paramount in 2022 more than any time in the history of the planet or the history of events. So, Amy, quick suggestions for Shannon about, how do we focus on that golden hour of fundraising, so to speak, and make sure that we are having everyone's attention, because you've done rooms. I mean, I don't know what your largest room is, but we just did one recently where there were 600 people. So that's a tricky order. You know what I mean? So
I think number one, close your bar.
Okay.
I think you were head on with that. And I think it's good. We always put signs at our bar that say bar will be closed 7 to 8 p.m. for mission appeal and live auction or whatever it is. The other thing that is really important is the placement and the timing on when you do that hour of fundraising, because what I have found, and guilty as charged, because this was me many years ago, we went to we had cocktail reception, then we go sit down and we had dinner, and then we had a program, and then, okay, well, now we're going to do our hour of fundraising. Well, guess what? By then, people have had too many drinks, probably. Mm-hmm. Two, they're starting to leave because the babysitter has to be home or whatever. So we moved all of our, what we call fundraising hour, up to the beginning of the event, to the point where we do a welcome at the beginning of the program, maybe a little introduction to our, to what our mission is, introduce people to the mission, go into a mission speaker, mission video, whatever it is, or fund to need, and go right into that fund to need right at the beginning of the program. People are still fresh. They, haven't, and it's almost, like we have auctioneers that say, okay, let's get through this. The next 10 minutes is the most important part of the evening. This is where you can, send kids to camp or whatever you associate it with, with your organization. And let's get through this, and then we're going to serve dinner. And then we serve dinner when we get through that fund and need. And then as soon as that last plate is set down, we go right into that live auction. So we get that fundraising piece of it out of the way when everybody's still fresh and you're not losing your room. Because the worst thing is, and when I say lose your room, it's a combination of the later you get into the night, people start to leave. The later you get into the night, the more they drink, the more they lose attention, the more you have other conversations going on.
My experience is 9 o'clock is the witching area. 9 o'clock p.m. Central, whatever time zone you're in, is the witching hour.
Yeah.
At that point, people are getting up to go and do it. So you got to get everything done before that time.
And you're, Jason, you are right on the money, because that is about what we do. Most of our cocktail receptions go like 6 to 7:15, 7:30. Then we give 15 minutes to get them into our ballroom, do the introduction, and it's about 8 o'clock, 8:10, and we're hitting that fundraising piece of it.
This is a very, very, very crucial point that I hope everyone takes note of. Amy, I want to follow up. Is it easier to lose a room now in 2022 than it was even a few years ago because of attention and where people's attention is and their attention span? So I'll follow up with another question, which would be, you're noticing that when you really, really do hit it out of the park properly, time-wise, time frame, things are even going better. You're exceeding goals as a result of these new practices?
So I can actually, so a couple things. One, we did our first in-person galas last November, and they were just get our feet wet. What can we learn from them? And I was concerned about attention span. Because people are like in a room together. That was not an issue. I felt like people paid attention. I think we learned through the pandemic and doing virtual events and stuff, how super, super important it is to tie people to your mission. So if you do a good job really bringing people to your mission, when you go to do those fundraising, you have their attention. The other piece of it, so in 2022, I will actually tell you, and I think we're at 20 events so far this year. We are 100% between our golf and galas, 100% of events have hit or exceeded budget. And I would say, and I don't know the number, I know 100% have hit goal at this point, but more of them have exceeded. And I would say, like, in some cases, blown it out of the park because of learning through the virtual. I did a lot of virtual events. I kind of was in charge of pivoting our events during the pandemic. So I learned a lot, and the fundraising first and the timing and all these things, tying people back to the mission. It's so important. And here again, what this is all really about is if you have the right auctioneer, they won't lose your room if your timing is right. If you don't have a good auctioneer, you could have the best timing in the world. You could do a great job doing bringing people to the mission, but your auctioneer can lose your room.
Yeah, you have to set the room. You have to set the table for success. The auctioneer is the one going to come in there and finish it off. Like, there was an event that I know somebody did. Everything was really good. They had a couple of speakers come in. The two speakers, politicians, spent about an hour and a half talking. When the last one got done, everybody left. So the auctioneer sitting there, everything's great. And they were set up to fail. There's no way they could ever come through and do something. And so you really want to put that on there. I want to hit on just a couple of things real quick, just before we go to any more questions.
I got some feedback, but whenever you're ready, brother, no worries.
Yeah. So, when you ask them what their auctioneering experience is, how many events are they doing? Do you consult as part of your package? Are you familiar with selling consignment, fund a need, other games? There's a book a friend of ours wrote called Paddles Up. It's a really great book. Chapter 7. He's got a bunch of questions about that. Good. It's called Paddles Up. You can download it. I think if you just Google it, you can find it.
I think it's paddlesupbook.com, but I'm going to double check that right now. Sorry, I'm not prepared.
But now, negotiating with the auctioneer. Beware the auctioneer who doesn't charge for his or her services. Yeah. And what I mean by that is, if they don't value their service enough to charge you, that's probably shouldn't value their services. I gave some exceptions to that, but beware of the free auctioneer. Are there travel fees involved? Are there ringman bid spotters that come with it? Is that separate? Does it include consulting? Is the fee due in advance or after the event? all those things are negotiable. You may say, look, I really can't spend, $5,000 right now because I don't have it, but here's what we'd like to do. All those things are negotiable. But I'm just suggesting to you, this is, and if you're, whether it's Doug or Dan or whoever auctioneers that are on this deal have ever heard this, hey, we're a small 501c3 and we're really a small charity and we're really trying to, save money and cut costs, then if you're the auctioneer, you need to pass, okay, if you're paid, because that means that they're looking for something cheap and free, because it's really difficult, because all we have is time. As an auctioneer, they have a date. So if they go do yours for free, it's really difficult for them to be able to charge, not charge. So just keep those things in mind whenever you're negotiating.
We're also big believers in just because you're a small nonprofit doesn't mean that your fundraising goals need to be small and that you can't utilize the help of a professional. That's been proven to us time and time again. We have many, many, many case studies in recent memory, as a matter of fact, not just historically, to prove that. So don't let that mindset get in your way. Okay, hiring, get a contract. Awesome.
Okay.
That's good. That's good.
I brought that up for one reason. The reason you want to get a contract, that just says, this is the date we agreed. This is the price we agreed to. These are the terms, and you're going to show up.
Yep. You concur with that, right? Of course, Amy.
I'm telling there's an auctioneer in my part of the country. I know that he's bailed on 2 nonprofits. Now, he did it within quite a bit of time, and there's difference if you have something come up. But if you get a better pay, if the auctioneer gets a better paying gig, and they go, which is another way you want to be aware of the free thing. Now, I would say 95% of the auctioneers that I've ever been around have the integrity and the wherewithal that no matter what, their word means something and they're going to show up. And I think that you'll find that most of the time. However, there are some that, they don't do it. But it's good to have that contract. I don't care if it's sign it on a napkin that everybody agrees to, because that's really what it is. We all want to remember what we agreed to. And so
we got some feedback as well. We got some feedback as well from Cheryl that I wanted to bring to light. Because I actually had it as a follow-up question I wanted to ask both of you. Mm-hmm. That'll segue nicely. Cheryl said, I advised a group to get a real auctioneer, another nonprofit. The celebrity that was going to be the auctioneer was my friend. It was tough, but it was the right decision. The free celebrity ended up being relieved. Well, that's not always the case. Of course, maybe that free celebrity might have done it for 5 years in a row, and there might be a lot of ego attached to the event. But that's a difficult conversation. We talk about this often in a lot of facets, that it's okay to have that difficult conversation. It's okay to put the organization and the mission first. And a lot of times that free entertainer is not going to be the best fit for the room. So I love that feedback, Cheryl. I love that we're encouraging people to have those difficult conversations, even if the alternative has a price tag attached to it, which
but
it
here's
should.
Well, Trevor, here's what happens a lot of value.
There's a lot of
Here's
value.
What happens in that situation. You've got the committee, they're hiring the person. They've got this, they've already paid this person money to show up, the entertainer. And they go, hey, well, could you do our auction too? The entertainer wants to get paid. Okay. The celebrity, sure. They still want to get paid. They're still going to get paid for their time, get their deal. And so if they think that's what they've got to do for the job, they're like, well, sure, I can.
Yeah.
It happens a lot.
Would you all suggest, just because we're getting low on time, would you all suggest, Amy and Jay, that you have that person that you're really trying to get out, quite frankly, for time's sake, out of that role and get someone else in that's a true professional that really has your best interests in mind and is going to raise a lot of money because of their prowess? Do you recommend talking to the committee, talking to the board or executive director about placing that person that they've been using for the last couple of years in a different role, making those kinds of suggestions? Sometimes that nudge is what's needed. How do you handle that? It's very delicate, obviously.
Sometimes you say, we've just got somebody else.
Yeah. I think it depends
decided
on
to go
the
a different
situation.
direction. If you've had an auctioneer that's been doing it and you say, look, we're going to go a different direction, that's what you're going to do. But I wouldn't, I think you don't want to burn a bridge. But one of the things I mentioned about auctioneers, interview multiple.
Sure.
They may be out of state. Right. They may be in state. They may be in your area. interview several. Don't just find the first person that says yes and default that and go, well, we waited, and do it early. Most professional auctioneers in the benefit world are there to help you. They are there to help you be part of the process. They have a tremendous amount of experience. When you come up on it, the committee comes up with some idea and they go, hey, hey, we're going to do a last man standing. Have you ever done that before? And they go,
Sure.
I have not, but however, that gives them time to figure it out. That way they can reach out to other professionals in the business. The benefit auctioneer specialists is an association that's just for that. And so find out who is going to partner with you in this deal. Don't wait till 2 weeks before and just because everybody that's good, if they're going to be booked up.
Yeah.
Hey,
and Jason too, I think it's really important. And a lot of people don't realize this is there are a lot of auctioneers that you talk to that they actually have a company, which means they have 4 or 5 other auctioneers that work for them. So when you're interviewing that auctioneer, I think it's really important to ask, are you the one that is going to be doing my event?
Mm-hmm. It is.
Because I have seen where you interview the owner of the company and they sell themselves and everything's great. And then next thing you know, you start doing the consulting, you've got a contract, and it's actually the new guy that he just hired that is, just got done training. Not saying everybody has to train, but you need to know that.
Yeah, and if you're doing an auction that's going to raise $10,000 and you've got somebody that's not been doing it that long and they want to come out, that's a great time because you probably can get them to do it for a lesser price. You're not, the difference is not deal. But when you're trying to raise $1 million or 150 or 200,000, and you have that potential, it's going back to the thing. You want a professional. You're not going to go pull if you've got a NBA basketball team. You're not going to go pull some kid out of middle school and say, hey, throw him in there. Let's go see what you can do, kid.
Yep.
You really
I love that. Hey, I just want to do a real quick shout out. Shannon loved the idea of having a golden hour sign, Amy. That was really good feedback. I hope everyone
that's great.
But yeah, wanted to make sure we got that out there. And then Shannon had a question. I have another statement that we want to share. Shannon had a question, Q&A, buffet in the ballroom versus a plated dinner, just kind of feedback there. It's kind of off the beaten path of the auctioneer, but I want to answer it for Shannon because we got you, Amy. How do you feel about that?
I do have an event they are hell-bent on doing a buffet and it works for their event. Yeah. So I think it depends on your event. It depends on your room.
Great point.
But if it's an event where you are trying to raise a lot of money, I am big on a served meal because here again, back to the timing, I like to do my mission drive, serve the meal, last plate is set down, because when the last plate is set down, it's typically the back of the room, which means the front of your room where you should have your money spenders are done eating at that point, and then we can jump right into that live auction.
Good. Yes.
And I never ever serve dessert until that's over because dessert signals the end to people. So they don't get dessert until we've done our golden hour of fundraising.
I hope everyone heard that, Amy. Amazing.
We had a question real quick, and we've had some other stuff, just kind of comments, but we had a question about, if you don't know anyone, somebody in your community does. Yeah. Auctioneers. Yep. Call the nonprofits, look in your calendar. You have to know a nonprofit that's done a benefit because there's a benefit auction every other day, seems like. So find out, just reach out to somebody and say, hey, Amy, call Amy Meyers. I mean, she's going to be on the email. Send her an email. Say this is what part of
we're going to make ourselves available. Obviously, you can ask us to help.
Here's
you
how
get on
you
the
can
right
find
path.
some. Who did your benefit? Who I'm looking to get a recommendation. Who did your auction and how they do for you? And that's how you can start that process to reach out to find some people that you may not even know. And that we see that all the time. Sure. We see where, people are reaching out, and we know a lot of auctioneers, they're being booked up 4, 5, 6, 8 a year in advance. So as you start that process and you do it, we have there was an auctioneer I know that came from Texas into Oklahoma. Auctioneers go from Oklahoma into Texas. There's all kinds of stuff, but there are license restrictions some places. So, but I'm not going to go down that road because that's just
that's a different story.
If there's, we can help
you on the right path. We always make ourselves available post-event, post-webinar with the emails. Amy will be copied on the recording that we send out today. So feel free to ask us. That's what we're here for. We had some really some good feedback that, I mean, might tie a bow on the whole conversation, quite frankly, because I'm really okay with sharing our opinion about how bullish we are on having a good auctioneer, a good benefit auctioneer that understands your room, understands your cause, involved, because it can really twist the dial on your fundraising efforts. And Troy is a friend of the program and has been on a few times, and he's got a great point about having professional ringmen as opposed to volunteers. Listen, volunteers are amazing. We had Lauren on last week. It's kind of dovetails really, really nicely. Lauren's an expert in the fundraising space with over a decade of experience on multiple continents. Volunteers are great. Are they going to handle your check-in and check-out? We'd like, your best volunteer maybe, or you make the investment, as Amy mentioned, you make the investment towards the right auctioneer, the right ring people, and then you make the investment to have the right staff on board. Because once again, as Amy mentioned, if you nail it, you're going to raise way more money and exceed goal. That's what we're noticing. That's what we're noticing. And it takes, of course, everyone has these different, it takes money to make money, and you get what you pay for and all those things, but it's actually becoming quite evident. And you have to have the right fit. And that's why we're saying, hey, cast a wide net, interview a few people, ask us for feedback, ask Amy for feedback. Ours is going to be completely non-biased with no agenda, but we want you to win. And having the difficult conversation about the donated, local celebrity, or having a difficult conversation about where to put the volunteers, where they're going to be best suited towards the mission. This is a team effort. It's okay to put the team first. You know what I mean? And have that difficult conversation. So we're very bullish on the whole idea of investing in the right individuals and the right team to help you hit it out of the park and raise the most amount of money. And once again, backtracking, even if you're a small organization, it does not mean that your fundraising goals need to be small. Okay, that's huge. And we're noticing that with very small organizations are absolutely hitting out of the park. So I'll quit rambling.
Trevor, yeah. Thanks, brother. That was the signal. We've got to draw a winner. We have to draw a winner because it is time to get our winner up here. And the winner this week is Shannon Nobel. Shannon, give her a big hand, everybody.
Shannon. All right.
You won something. You're going to be able to use that. We always get you out of here on time. Amy Meyers, thank you so much for taking time and hopping on with us. I know it's your feedback's really, really a big deal for everybody. Thank you so much.
Yeah, can't thank you enough, Amy.
Thanks for having me.
Always good.
Always fun.
Well, hey, Shannon, well, happy birthday to your son at Wake Forest in North Carolina. And congrats. Thank you, Troy. Thanks, Pascal. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody, for being here today.
Really,
we really
appreciate it.
it.
Yeah.
Talk to you soon.
Hey, thanks for making time for us, Amy. Really appreciate you.
Bye.